Hello friends, my name is Shivam from DevOps Schools and I will help you to enable your learning process in various technologies of DevOps, artificial intelligence, machine learning, big data and many more. This is our initiative to help you by sharing multiple tutorials and videos. And if you want any specific tutorials or any particular topic, then please do comment in the below comment section and I will help you with it. Also, please subscribe to our premium services on YouTube, which will give you access to more content and videos to enhance your knowledge about all these topics. Also, if you want me to help you with regards to the online trainings and classroom sessions by our qualified trainers, then please do write me at contact@devopsschool.com. Thank you.
So here, as we discussed yesterday, that there are multiple styles of architecture, right? Yes or no? I think all of you could able to hear me, right? If not, please let me know. Yeah. So in this particular architecture, so we have got multiple layers. Yeah. So like for example, we have a client layer, so which is going to be the first and foremost layer, and then we have what app server layer, or I would say application server layer. Then we have next layer is going to be the server layer, and then we have data or meta layer. So these are four broader layers that we have within this particular Informatica architecture. I repeat, these are the four broader layers that we have within this particular Informatica architecture. Yeah. Now let us understand, like so what are the different types of clients supported by this particular client layer. Then we'll get into the details. So that is what we are going to do in detail. Yeah. So now in the client layer, what happens? We have got different types of clients. One, web client in broader sense. I repeat, one is going to be the web-based client, which means we are going to send the request in the web, and we could expect the response to the web. That's what is meant by web client. And what is the actual web client supported by Informatica? I would talk about it. Yeah. And then next is going to be what standalone client. Yeah. So which means we need to install this particular standalone client and then open that application and see how we can perform what I call sending a request and receiving the response from the server. Yeah. So what are different types of standalone clients we have? I will talk about it. And then next, our third type of client we have here is what command line client. Yeah, which means we can also send the request from the command, and then we can also expect what the corresponding response from the server. Yeah. So that's what we have within this particular client layer. Yeah. So now within a web client, what are the actual web clients supported by this particular what I call Informatica? So to answer that, we have got admin console, or we can say administrator client. Both are same, so don't get confused. I repeat, admin console or administrator client, both are same. No? So here we use this particular client in order to perform what global operations like creation of services, or adding a nodes or node management, any admin operations, right? Adding a user, modifying user, adding a group, adding a role, assign user to a group or role, whatever, right? So all such administrative operations can be taken care by using this particular administrator client. Apart from that, we also can use this particular administrator client in order to perform global monitoring of all the activities that are happening within Informatica. Remember this. So that is where this particular admin client will be used for, right? So just remember these high level bullet points. We will get into it in detail with practical examples, at least 2, 3 global admin services. I'll talk about it so that you will understand practically also how it will be done. Yeah. Now the next is what we have got standalone clients. Yeah. The first and foremost client as part of standalone. Standalone means we need to install, right? Yeah. So first and foremost thing is what? Informatica repository. Yeah. You can note down this Informatica repository manager. I repeat, Informatica repository manager. Yeah. Please note down these points. And then that's the first line. What it does, I'll talk about it. And first let me list out all the clients which are part of standalone category. Yeah. Then we have got Power Center designer. Yeah. You can say Informatica Power Center designer. Yeah. So Informatica Power Center designer. Yeah. So next we have workflow manager. Yeah. I repeat, next client is what? We have workflow manager. And one more client that we have here is what? Workflow monitor. Remember, yeah. So these are the different types of standalone clients that we have within this particular Informatica Power Center. Remember this, yeah. So yeah. So now let's understand at least 1 or 2 points for each of these clients. Like what do we do on with these clients? Yeah. So to start with, so this particular repository manager. Anyway, we are going to do this practically also. So Informatica repository manager. So what is a repository here? Repository means for storage media where we store metadata. Remember, yeah? I repeat, repository is a storage media where we store what? Metadata. Meaning what? So using repository manager, manager means what? Managing the data, which means performing manipulations. Manipulations could be creation of metadata, modifying metadata, consume metadata, monitoring metadata, which means what? In simple terms, we can create a metadata, right? So metadata. So example, create a folder. One example, correct, no? So that is one example of create metadata. Clear, no? Now, similarly, we have got modify metadata or manage metadata. Both are same. So modify metadata. So example, if you want to modify the folder name, yeah, from ABC to XYZ, we can do that. So modify folder. I'm just talking about with one example. Yeah. So modify folder, yeah, folder name or whatever, right? Simple example. Yeah. Similarly, third major thing or one more operation is what? Let us say consume. Consume means what? Search, to make it very simple. Yeah. So meaning what? Let us say there are n number of folders or n number of meta elements that we have. Now, if we go and start doing navigation, right, it will take a lot of time to identify where we have that folder. Yes or no? But or any other meta element, like mapping, maplets. We have many things. I'll talk about those concepts. So, which means what? If you use search, you can just apply the name which you are looking for. If it is available, you could able to find. If not, you'll get a response saying that no such results. That's it. Yeah. So now let us talk about this thing practical later on. For now, you can just remember that I just gave one example based on the folder. How to perform creation part, how to perform modification part, how to perform consume part. So likewise, we can think of similar concept even for other meta elements, like we have got mapping, maplet, transformation, or source, or target. We have many meta elements. The concept is same. No? Now, let us talk about next client, which is going to be what you call power center designer. So this is going to be the very important client. So that is where we are going to spend a lot of time. I repeat, this is a very important client, which is going to be the power center designer, where we are going to spend a lot of time. Remember this. So power center designer will be used in order to perform what I call design and development. I repeat, power center designer client will be used in order to perform design and development of what? Different meta elements. For example, for example, create mapping. Yeah? Clear, right? Yeah. So then we can create what map plate and so on. So in simple terms, all the ETL operations, right, will be taken care of by using what? This particular client, which is going to be the power center designer. So in simple terms, I'll just put here ETL operations, which means extract, transform, and load. So all those operations would be taken care of by using what? Power center designer. Remember this. Yeah. So now the next client is what? These things you need to remember clearly. Yeah. Remember what to do where. In internal things anyway we are going to talk, but we need to have global picture. Now workflow manager client will be used in order to what? Create workflow. So workflow means what? Set of tasks. I repeat, workflow means what? Set of tasks which will be interconnected in order to meet part or complete business requirement. So just remember, workflow means what? Set of tasks. For example, one task does getting the data, other task that putting the data. So combine both, create what getting the data and putting the data. These two tasks put together is what we call workflow. Simple example, right? So let's say I'll just put here T1 plus T2 example. Likewise, you can have any number of tasks. Set could have more than one. Yeah, could be two or three or n. N could be any. Yeah? So that's it. Now, once we create a workflow, we can also run the workflow over here using workflow manager. But preferably, it's better to use separate client to perform what all run activities. That's why workflow monitor will be used. So here we can start the workflow or run the workflow, or we can stop the workflow, we can abort the workflow, or we can resume the workflow, or and so on. In a sense, we can perform all the runtime activities by using what I call workflow monitor. Right? I repeat, we can perform all the runtime activities by using what I call workflow monitor. Remember this, yeah. So that's what we do with the workflow monitor, right? So that's it about the clients. Any questions here? Let me try to recap. Repository manager will be used to perform metadata operations like a create, modify, and consume. And designer will be used to perform building ETL activities like one example, create mapping, modify mapping, and so on. And workflow manager will be used to build workflow which can have set of tasks which will be interconnected with dependency, interdependency, whatever. That anyway we'll talk about that with practical examples. Yeah. Architecture level, I'm just trying to talk about it at very high level. Yeah. So now workflow monitor. So workflow monitor client will be used in order to perform monitoring part, which means we can run a workflow, we can stop the workflow, we can resume the workflow, and look at the status of where this particular workflow all about. Yeah. So did we get any what status has failed or passed or let us say aborted or whatever? All such status activities should be monitored by using what? Workflow monitor. Yeah. Just remember that. Now, let us talk about another client, another type of client. which is going to be the command line client. So this particular command line client will be used in order to perform what we call run. So mainly we can use this command for one meta part, and second we can also use this for performing data part. In a sense, meta means what? If you want to move, transfer metadata from one environment, let's say development environment, to what um, QA environment, or we can say testing environment. How do you do it? So we have got command line utilities to perform that. That's one thing. And similarly, so what we need to do? Data part. Let us say if you want to run this particular informatic activities from third-party scheduling tools, like I think Dinesh was asking question, right, about scheduling and all, right? So that I'm trying to answer now. Let us say you need to run this particular Informatica workflows or whatever from third-party scheduler, like we have got what do you call popular schedulers, right? Like IBM Tivoli or Autosys or Control M or Crontab, whatever, yeah, whatever, doesn't matter. Yeah. Can we run it? Yes, answer is right. To do that, we have got one command and utility, which is what we call PMCMD, which is going to help us in order to what create a shell script or bash script and call that bash script from or shell script from what third party scheduler. It's very simple. No? So we will talk about it, how it will be done. So we'll go with the step by step, how to run it from the command line and how to create a script so that we can call it from what schedulers. That's one flow. Other flow is what? Can you run this directly this command from by scheduling it? Yes. Answer is yes. How it can be done? I'll show that also. Right? So likewise, you can think of multiple scenarios like how we can make this Informatica things, it gets executed in an automated way, like scheduled manner. That's at 12 p.m. IST, this particular job should be executed. So how do you set it? Or that's every 1 hour or every day at 9 a.m. IST, this particular job should be what you call activated, or it should be started. How do you do that? That's where we can take care of what recurring activities within the scheduler. How to do that? We'll see that. So that's about I just given some highlights about this how to make use of this particular command line utility. Clear, no? That's about client layer. Clear, no? Now once we do that, next step is what? Clients can only send requests, right? Yes or no? And somebody should be there to service it. Who is somebody? Server layer. So that's what we are going to talk. Right, no? I repeat. So client, they can only just send a request. Yeah, somebody should be there to service it. Who is that somebody? So that's what we are going to look at. So that's what is a server. What are those servers? Yeah. So now, as part of this particular server layer, we have got application server. Yeah. So remember, so this particular Informatica supports what web style architecture or web based, right? Any web request, it expects what application server which should be up and running. For example, if you take a Google, right? Every day I think most of the mostly will be using google.com, right? Yes or no? So within that, if you want to what you call perform web request, web response, how do you do that? Yeah. So that's where app server is going to play a very key role. For example, in google.com, if you enter some text in a text search box and hit search button, then what happens? Request will be sent to web server, then onto app server, then onto Google server, where it is going to service that particular request, specific service search request. Then you'll get the response all the way back to the request. That is what happens in google.com. Same concept holds good even in what? Informatica. So now the question, what are the different types of app servers that we have in the market, and the app server or servers that will be supported by Informatica? That is going to be the next question. Yeah. So by default, Informatica comes up with a package along with a package Tomcat. I repeat, Tomcat is a default application server which comes along with the package. That is what will happen as part of what application server. I repeat, Tomcat is a default app server that comes along with a package. Remember this. Clear, no? So that's it. So we have other application server like a JBoss, WebLogic, WebSphere. If you want to use it, you can use it to deal with what larger or mid-sized enterprise applications. But Tomcat, it has been designed for what tiny based applications. Now, let us talk about the server layer. Server is a one where the Informatica have built it. App server is the one which was built by somebody. Like Apache Tomcat is what? It's a open source. JBoss is also somebody's. And WebLogic is also from Oracle. And WebSphere is from IBM. There are what? Some others. Now the server part is purely driven from Informatica. So Informatica, they have built what? Multiple services. A first and foremost service, you can just note down this, the Power Center repository service. I repeat, the first and foremost service that we have here is what? In server layer, Power Center repository service. Like for example, we talked about create metadata. So who is going to survey this particular request? Some service should be there, right? That is where repository service will be used for. Clear, no? So that's a simple example. Likewise, you can think of any other um, repository based operations. Now, the next is what we have, Power Center integration service. I repeat, next service that we have here is what? Power Center integration service. So this particular what integration service will be used in order to perform the data movement activities. Data movement in the sense, for example, let's we have got task 1 and we also have got task 2. So how we can move the data from T1 to T2, sorry, T2, that's where this service will be used for. Clear, no? Similarly, let's say you want to move the data from relative to what? Some other application. How do you do that? Integration service. Likewise, you can think of many examples where integration service will be used. In simple terms, if you take ETL, right? So ETL, we have got E and T and L. Who does data movement from E to T, T to L? Integration service. It's as simple as it. So very, very simple to understand the concept, like when we can think of using this particular integration service. Yeah, we have got other services which are optional. So let's focus on mandatory ones. So then we will talk about optional ones. Yeah? So later on. Yeah. So that's it about server side. Now, once we understand different services over here, next step is what? Where do we store output of these services? I repeat, where do we store output of these services? So that is going to be the next question. Yeah. So to answer that, we have got what? Data or meta layer. I repeat, to answer that, we have got data or meta layer. Remember that. Yeah. So here, let us say you move data from ETL. You need to load somewhere, right? Where is that? That's where data layer. So this is going to be the storage media. Remember. Yeah. For example, let us say if you want to start getting into what output of ETL. Yeah. So that's where we store it. Yeah. So ETL store. So its result of load will be part of this particular storage media. Remember this. Clear, no? So similarly, you can think of many. Source data also can be stored. Target data also can be stored. ODS data also can be stored. Stage data also can be stored, and so on. In simple terms, wherever there is a need to perform the storage could be intermediate storage or it could be final target storage. For all of them, this particular what you call storage media will be used for. Clear, no? Any questions from uh, this particular architecture so far? I just talked about from top to bottom. Yeah. Any questions so far from anybody? No questions. No? Dina, Dinesh, Priyanka. I think you could able to hear me, right?
Yeah, yes, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, fine. So, any questions from anybody? Yeah, it's clear, right? Yeah, fine. So now, please let me know in case if I'm going slowly or fast or whatever, right? I can change based on whatever the way that you want. So I'm very much flexible. Please let me know. Huh? So now, if you want me to go fast, also I can do it. Or like, if you want to reduce, I can reduce it. Or if you want to maintain same pace, I can do that. Anything is fine. Yeah. Is that fine? Same pace like what
Yeah,
I'm trying to do now?
continue.
Yeah,
This
fine.
one person. I
Okay.
don't know about
So
others.
now, Dina, Priyanka, Subha, is that fine?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay. Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, fine. Now let us start getting into what you call understanding the connectivity. So far, we just talked about independent layers, right? Like we talked about the client layer, we talked about what you call server layer, and we talked about app server layer, and we also talked about what you call uh, data or meta layer. Yeah. So that is what we have discussed so far, right? Now the next step is going to be what we need to start understanding what you call how one can connect the activities from top to bottom, in a sense from client to bottommost layer, which is going to be the data or meta layer. So that is going to be the key challenging part. Yeah. So that is what we need to take a look at now, right? So I repeat, this is what we need to take a look at now, like how one can start performing the connectivity from top to bottom. Right? So let's try to perform that so that we will understand better. Yeah, fine. So let's start doing it. Yeah, let me just open a notepad. Yeah, so now remember, if you want to connect from top to bottom, what need to be done here? We need to start what you call going from top to bottom. One example, let us say if you say create metadata, what and all happens from top to bottom? Let us take one scenario base. Step by step you'll go. Let's say create metadata. Yeah, from the client. Let's say one of the client. Which client is that? Let us say from Power Center Repository Manager. Let me just, these flows you need to remember very well. Huh? So Repository Manager from Power Center Repository Manager, you are going to issue what simple request, which is going to be the create metadata, right? So now how this particular create metadata request will be serviced? I repeat, how this particular create metadata request will be serviced. So to answer that, this particular create metadata request will be sent to first what? App server, which is going to be the application server. Then it will be sent to server. Within that, which service we use it here? Power Center Repository Service. I repeat, which service we use it here in order to perform
To get our channel membership, click onto the join button, select the 399 plan and grow your skills immensely.
This particular create metadata request, power center, yeah, power center repository service. You could able to see, right? So yes, yeah. And once it is serviced, then where do we store it? Meta storage media. That's it. Metadata store. That's all. So we call it as a repository. Remember, that's all. Yeah. I repeat, we call this as what we call a repository. So this is how one can start storing or performing this particular create metadata request. I repeat, this is what we can use to perform create metadata request. So let me repeat. The request comes from repository manager, Power Center repository manager, which request create metadata. Then this request will be sent to application server. I'm just following from top to bottom. App server, server, and metastore. That's all, nothing else. Then it will be sent to what? Server. Then on to Power Center repository service, and output of service will be stored where? Metastore. So that is where the result of this particular create metadata will be stored. Once it is stored, you'll get a response back to what requester. Who is the requester here? Repository manager, where we could able to see the response. The response would contain what? Your repository will be created, or let's say your meta element will be created. Example folder. So that folder can be seen as part of repository manager client all the way back, in a sense from here to here, and from here to here, and from here to here, all arrows back, and then from here to here. That's what happened. This is a bi-directional part. Request and response. We requested, it will be serviced, then you'll get the response back to the requester. Who is the requester here? Repository manager. That's it. So very simple, right? Now, so if you have any questions in between, that you can always stop me. I'll definitely explain in detail with example. Now let us talk about another flow. Another flow is going to be, let us say, create mapping. Yeah. So where do you do create mapping? I'll just copy and paste same thing, only some change. That change part I'll just highlight it. So I'll just copy and paste. Now from where we are going to send a request with respect to create mapping? Power Center designer. Correct, no? So Power Center designer. About what? Let us say here, create mapping. Example, right? So create mapping, right? Now, so create mapping request, right? So we need to supply here create mapping request. Yeah. And this particular create mapping request will be sent to app server, then on to server. It will be serviced by using Power Center repository service. The result will be stored in meta store. That's all. It's a meta activity only, right? Yes or no? So now the next is what? So once it is created, you'll get the response back to the designer, where we can see the mapping that would have been saved already. That's all. It's very simple. Yeah. So this is what another example with respect to metadata. Yeah. Now let us talk about another example. Again, I'll just copy here. Wherever there is a change, right? I'll talk about that particular change. Yeah. So one more request. So from, let us say, workflow manager, right? Let us take one example from workflow manager. Huh? Like what kind of request that we can send and how we get the response back. Yeah. Workflow manager. Let us say here we just do what? Start mapping. Yeah. Starts. Let's say workflow. Sorry. So start workflow. Right. So now let us talk about here. start workflow, right? And this particular start workflow request would be sent to what? Application server, then onto server, then it is going to make use of which service here? Not repository service. It will make use of Power Center integration service. Yeah, I repeat, it will make use of Power Center integration service. Remember, yeah? And this will also interact with the Power Center repository service. Why? Because it should obtain the metadata before it does data transfer, because integration does data transfer, no integration service. So before it transfers, it should get metadata. Who gets metadata? Power Center repository service from metastore. Once it is done, then the result of this particular integration service will be stored where? Data storage media. Remember this. That's it. Once it is done, so you'll get the response back to the requester, which is workflow manager, where we could able to see workflow manager or workflow monitor, both are same. In the sense, we can run from both the places. So you can consider this for both. So monitor, yeah. So which means you could able to see what uh, status of this particular workflow as part of workflow manager. So workflow monitor. So manager, normally we run it and we monitor it here, but monitor will be used for both. You can run it and monitor it. Yeah? So that is why for run and monitor, this is the best thing. Run, monitor with a schedule, without schedule, all that can be done. Yeah? So right, that's about another flow, which is basically here. The main part here is what? This is a runtime activity. This is what? Meta activity. These two are meta activities. This is going to be the run activity, which means actual data transfer. This is only what? Meta part. Remember, there are two parts in data warehousing. One is a meta, other is what? Data. Just remember, that's all. All the warehouse tools will work based on what? Two things only: meta and data. That's it. Yeah. First, we take care of metadata. Then we use that meta to perform run activity. That's all. It's as simple as that. Meta is first, then followed by data. Yeah. So that's about what one example with respect to what is called run activity. Yeah. Fine, right? So once we do that, next step is what? We can start getting into performing another activity, which is going to be what I call command line activity. So we talked about command line, right? So we can also run Power Center activities from the command line. I think I talked about, right? If you look at here, so command line activity, which is for data transfer, right? PMCMD. So now let us see how it works. So we can also start the workflow by using what? Command line activity. The client is going to be what? Command line client. Remember, yeah. So which command we use here? So to start the workflow, whatever command, let's say PMCMD, right? So that's it. Yeah, that's a command we use. Now what happens? The request is what? Start workflow. It will be sent to app server, then onto server, then onto Power Center integration service, then onto repost service. Just everything is same, no change. Only the change is what? Invocation point, which means we are running from the command line instead of from graphical client. Nothing else. This is only one difference. I repeat, here we are running from the command line. Rest everything is same as this, which means this is a graphical client, this is a command line client. It's as simple as that. Clear, no? So that's about another flow. Yeah. So likewise, we can think of one more flow, which is admin flow. I didn't talk about it because we talked about admin console, right? So these things I talked about some examples. Here also I talked about some examples, but I didn't talk about one example for this web client. Let us talk about that. I'll just copy one of the thing. So copy and paste. Yeah. Now what we do here from this particular administrator client. Remember, yeah. So these are the very important flows, because what happens is if you remember this, yeah, then we can perform what I call any kind of activities within Informatica. These are global flows. So if you know the like where the starting point, where action would take place, where the ending point, right? Then it is very easy to troubleshoot. Yeah. Instead of directly jumping onto the tool and do some drag drop options, right? That anybody can do it. But if something goes wrong, how to troubleshoot? For that, if you have this complete understanding, right, then it's very easy to troubleshoot. Or else also we can do it somehow. That somehow business is not good, based on my experience. Yeah. Now let us talk about one example with respect to admin client. Create a new service. I'll just put here create a service. Yeah. So creation of new service like Power Center report service, Power Center integration service. Who does it? Uh, Administrator, right? So request is what? Create service. Create, let us say, by PC Power Center repository service. I'll just put rep service. Rep means what? Repository. Yeah. And this request will be sent to app server, then on to what server, then the output of that will be stored where? Not in metadata store only, but there is a separate store for administrator. Yeah. So we can say it's a domain database. Yeah. I repeat, we can say this as what? Domain database. That's it. Yeah. So that's it. Like how one can start performing the storing of the result of the admin client. Yeah. So that is what we can see as part of this particular storage. Clear, right? Any questions here? See, very simple. Rest everything is same. Yeah. So what is this? Spelling problem. Yeah. So admin client, where they say they can create any service. Example, Power Center repo service. So it's going to make the app server. Then finally, it is going to create this particular service. Result of that will be stored in metadata store. And metadata store for admin is what? Domain database, not repository database. Yeah? Remember. So that is a difference between what this particular simple repository with domain database. I'm just highlighting this because admin things will be stored here, whereas developer things will be stored as part of simple repository. We can say this is a Power Center repository, and this is what? Domain repository. I repeat, this is, let's say, we can also call it as, let's say, domain repository. Clear, no? And we call this as what? So Power Center repository. Yeah, that's it. PC rep or Power Center repository. Yeah. Power Center means Power Center activities. Pure development activities will be stored here. This is purely domain. Domain in the sense, who does this? Administrator. Yeah. Domain is a collection of services with its associated nodes. I repeat, domain is a collection of services like repository service, integration service with sub corresponding nodes. Node could be system like physical box one, like computer one, computer two, computer three. That's what is meant by domain. Yeah, that's it. Domain, just remember, logical collection of one is computer, second is what? Corresponding services. To make it very simple terms. Yeah, clear, right? Any questions over here? So this is what we do as part of this particular architecture. So let me try to recap. So in this particular architecture, we got four broader layers. One, client layer. Second, app server layer. Third, server layer. Fourth, data meta layer. Right. The first step. And second, what are different clients we have? Web client. One is a web client. Second is standalone client. And third is what? Command-line client. Yeah. And what are the actual web client we have? Admin client. And standalone, what we have? Repository manager, designer, manager, and monitor. Right. And what are different command line clients we have? One for metadata, other for data. Meta means what? Let's say you have built, you in the sense developer has built some let us say business activities within the designer client. Now which should be available to what? Real testing environment, so that they'll test and get it verified. To do that, we can use what? Power center repository commands. We have got repository commands, so which are going to help us to move metadata from metadata here. So to move metadata from dev environment to QA environment, which is quality assurance or testing environment. And next, we also have database commands, like if you want to transfer or move the data from one task to other task, then we use this particular PMCMD, right? So that's it, like how this particular data movement would take place from one to another over here. Now next step, they are just requesters, right? They're just dummy clients, but somebody should be there to get those requests serviced. Who is somebody here? These are the two things. Server, yeah. So this server will act as a delegator or a mediator or broker, yeah. So which means these requests, like whatever we send from the client, right, they'll be delegated through what application server. So one of the app server that comes along with this Informatica package, which means when you buy license from Informatica, they'll give package, right, which is installable stuff. Along with that, you will get this Tomcat. You don't need to buy it, or you don't need to download it separately. It comes along with the package. Yeah. So that's a Tomcat. And server side, these are actual Informatica services, where these are the two mandatory services that we need to create in order to perform bare minimal activities of Informatica. Remember this, I repeat, in order to perform bare minimal activities of Informatica, we need to have one Power Center repository service, and second is going to be the Power Center integration service. Yeah. So that is what we could able to say over here. Clear, no? So that's it, like how one can start taking care of services. Now the question, let's say server has done servicing part. Now where do we store the output of this particular service or services? That's going to be the next question. To answer that, we have got another layer, which is going to be the data or meta layer. So this is where this, if you perform any meta activities, it will be serviced by this, and result will be stored in where? Meta storage, right? And if you have done any data movement, who does it? Integration service, and result will be stored where? Data storage media. That's it. So very simple. Meta activities, meta store. Data activities, data store. Just remember this. Yeah. So that's it, like how these clients or these layers would work. Yeah. And I've also explained the flow of activities from top to bottom from scenario perspective. For example, if you perform some create metadata, like create folder, how it happens, and if you want to create a mapping, how the complete flow would take place, or if you want to run or start the workflow, how the flow would take place. Similarly, if you want to start the workflow from the command line or through third-party schedulers, how it happens. And sorry, if you want to perform some any administrative operations, let's say creation of services, one example which I picked up here. And once you create it, how this particular creation would take place within the administrator client. So I talked about it from the flow perspective. Yeah. So if you know that, you'll get a global picture, a broader picture, like what happens within this particular Informatica. Now it's your turn. If you have any questions, like whatever we discussed so far, please let me know so that I'll elaborate it with example. Remember, any kind of question you can ask, I'll explain that with example. Remember this. Yeah. So any questions from anybody?
Yeah, Narasimha,
Dina,
can you
Dinesh,
please share?
Priyank,
Yeah,
Shiva.
yeah. Hi, Narasimha. Uh,
Fine, no?
yeah, can you please
Yeah.
share this presentation after the end of the
Oh,
meeting?
this
It
one, huh?
is very,
Notepad thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
the notepad. So,
Yes, I'll
yeah,
share
it is
this and
very,
also PPTs also and also documents. All I'll share it, Dinesh. Yeah.
yeah, sure, sure. And one more thing, small question. So you were saying it will be stored in the Power Center integration side. I mean, Power Center integration or storage side.
Yeah, storage side, one is a meta, other is a data. This is a storage layer.
It will go
Dinesh.
back in
Last,
storage side, right? If you create some mapping,
yes,
so integration service.
right. If you
Hello,
create a mapping, right, mapping will be stored in some backend storage,
hello.
which is, let's say,
Yeah.
database example, right? Similarly, if you run the mapping, run the workflow, result will be stored in some backend database. Let's say data store, like Oracle
Hmm.
database example. Yeah.
Okay, like this it is. Okay.
Clear, Dinesh?
See, Oracle database side, yeah, Oracle database architecture is different, right? It will store in by using the cache memories, right? Buffer cache, share allocation memory like this. So here also any
That
is
is
there like
internal
this.
database. Yeah, that is how it stores within the database. We don't need to care. Our scope is what here? We are talking about Informatica. So from what do we do Informatica? That's the scope. Informatica, what it does, it just say that insert command. Yeah, that's it. That insert, how insert happens within database, that's up to database. That's separate training altogether. Correct, no? It will just go and insert data to what? Database. That's all, Dinesh.
Okay,
So
backend
I'm
auto.
trying to what? Isolate things only from Informatica perspective, like what we do within Informatica. Outside Informatica, that's a separate story.
Okay. Yeah.
Clear, Dinesh?
Yeah. Clear, clear. Yes.
Yeah, fine. So remember, if you take any topic, right, that only we should stick to that topic, so that if we should never ever get deviated from that topic, so that we'll understand that topic only in detail. Remember, if we divert, no, that's where confusion starts. So I'm trying to talk about only Informatica. Yeah. So that's it. What comes in, what happens within Informatica, where it goes, or where it can go. That's it. From and to and in between. That's all we need to talk. Yeah. That's what Informatica job. So from where it picks up the data and to where it sends the data and what we do within Informatica. That's it. To where we will only send it to two part. It's up to them to take care how they store it. And from also we take it. But what do they do as part of this from site? We don't need to care. That's their job. Correct? No? That's what we need. We should be very what you call stringent on one particular task. Our task is what? Informatica task. Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah, that's a good question, Dinesh. Yeah. Yeah. Fine. So now once we know this particular flow, right? So next we need to start getting into what I call next level. Yeah. Next level means what? So let us start getting into the tool. Yeah. So that we can perform some hands-on today's session. Yeah. Let us get into the tool. Yeah. Yeah. So I think your systems, I think yesterday, I think we talked about it. Who has to use what? Yeah. And yeah, let us start getting into it. Yeah. Please get in there. Yeah. So I've just got into my system, all of you. So I think you know your systems, right? 3. Okay. Yeah, please log on to your systems. It's already logged in. So you just have to what I'm just changing the date. Yeah, looks like this system is not changed. Yes, this is fine. Yeah. So let me just verify. This is my system. Everything is fine. 3 is also fine. And now we can just go with another one. This is what this is also fine. Another one. This is also fine. Yes. And next one, this is also, yes. I think all are fine. Yeah, I think it's all logged in, right? Yes or no? Yeah. Now let us talk about checking this services part. Yeah. So all of you, I am looking at your systems. All the systems are up and running. Yeah, you can just get in there. Now let us go to services list. Yeah, go to start, run, and type services.msc. It's already there anyway. Just go and type what services.msc, yeah, and hit the enter button. So here you can type I, where you can see what our one of the service, which is Informatica 9.5.1. Yeah, that should be up and running. Yeah, can you see here this one? So in my case, it is not started yet. So we need to start it. Let me start this. Why it is not started? So you can also check that. Yeah? Please check that. Yeah. Yeah. So if it is not started, right? So in my case, it's not started. So I'm just starting it. So let me also check other system. I'm checking 3. Yeah, this is perfect. So system 3 started already. Let me check second system. Second system. So you need
No,
to check on just, yeah.
my system not started. Second system.
Yeah, one sec. Let me check that. I'm doing one by one. Yeah. Yes, this is also not started. So what I'll do is, so if it is not started, no, so we need to start it. But before that, because we change the date, no, so this database passwords will be expired. Yeah, this is fine, right? So we should start. I don't know which system is it. Should start it. Let me start. Yeah, fine. So this started. Just wait a minute. Another system. Oh, this was not started. Let us try doing it. System. Remember, these are all troubleshooting things, though. You all need to remember. See, password got expired. So I'm trying to what now? Reset the password. So this started now, hands-on part. Remember this. No? So from the beginning itself, so we are trying to understand the problem. No? Remember. No? So remember, smooth flow is very easy. If some problem happens, right, fixing that is very challenging part. That is what I am trying to show from the beginning itself. Yeah, this is date wise is fine. Now let us look at the state. I don't know which system is this, but I'm trying. Yeah. If people have not started this services.msc, yeah. So type I, so which will take you to what? Yeah, Informatica, right? It is Informatica. So it's not started. So we need to go and check whether this particular database password got expired or not. SQL plus, yeah, Oracle client, right? Command line client. Then system, then sorry, see, it got expired. So that's it. Now, after resetting password, it's the same password you need to give a Tiger only. Default password I have given here. And click on start. That's it. So I think rest is fine, right? Now all started. If please let me know if anything is not started. Dinesh, now it's fine, right?
Yeah. No, it's fine.
Yeah. So how about others?
Please enroll our general membership for 399 plan to get access of all the parts.
Along with that, you can access our other tutorials such as Docker, Ansible, Jenkins, Terraform, Splunk, AWS, Azure, and various other DevOps related premium tutorials with our channel membership. If you would have any issues with our channel membership, you can drop an email to us at contact@devopsschool.com, or you can also unsubscribe from channel membership anytime if you don't want to continue or did not like the video. To get our channel membership, click onto the join button, select the 3D99 plan and grow your skills immensely.
Please be kind enough to like it, and you can comment any of your doubts and queries. We will reply to them at the earliest.
Thanks for watching.